Have you ever pondered the chilling mystery of witch trials where fear and superstition ruled and logic was cast aside? A time when the world was shrouded in the ominous cloak of the unknown, where the line between reality and the supernatural was as thin as a spider's web, and where witches were feared and prosecuted. In the midst of the maelstrom of the Middle Ages, across the length and breadth of Europe and North America, a phenomenon was taking root that would shape centuries of history and leave an indelible mark on our collective consciousness. This was the era of the witch trials, a period of intense fear, suspicion, and persecution that seemed to grip societies in an unbreakable stranglehold. Witches, as they were perceived back then, were not the broomstick-flying, pointed hat-wearing characters of our modern Halloween stories. No, they were ordinary people, mostly women, who were believed to be in league with the devil, using their dark powers to cause harm and misfortune. These unfortunate souls were accused of everything from causing disease and crop failure to influencing the weather and causing death. But why, you may wonder, were these trials so pervasive? Why was there such a widespread belief in the power of witches? The reasons are as complex as they are fascinating. A mix of religious fervor, social tensions, and the fear of the unknown all played their part in creating an atmosphere ripe for the witch hunts. The trials were often brutal, with the accused subjected to ruthless interrogations and inhumane tests to prove their guilt or innocence. The echoes of these trials still resonate today, a chilling reminder of a time when fear overpowered reason and suspicion could mean a death sentence. As we delve deeper into the shadowy past, prepare to uncover the harrowing tale of the witch trials. A tale that takes us from the quaint villages of England, with their grim stories of the Pendle witches, to the infamous Salem witch trials of North America. It's a journey into the heart of darkness that is as intriguing as it is terrifying, so brace yourselves, for we're about to lift the veil on one of history's most enigmatic chapters. The witch trials did not emerge from thin air. They have their roots in the depths of history. The origins of these trials can be traced back to ancient pagan beliefs. Pagan societies lived in close communion with nature, and they revered the elements and natural phenomena. Here, the concept of a witch, a person with supernatural abilities, was not necessarily seen as evil. However, as time passed, the narrative began to shift. These pagan beliefs gradually morphed and were absorbed into the burgeoning religion of Christianity. The early Christian church was grappling with its own identity and was keen to stamp out any elements of paganism that threatened its authority. It was during this time that the notion of witches began to take on a more sinister tone. Witches were no longer seen as benign nature worshippers, but were painted as individuals in league with the devil, intent on causing harm to others. The church played a significant role in propagating this fear of witches. In the Middle Ages, the church was the primary source of information for most people, and its teachings were taken as the absolute truth. It spread tales of witches entering into pacts with the devil, casting malevolent spells and causing all manner of misfortune. This fear was stoked by the church to such an extent that it became embedded in the collective consciousness of society. This fear was not just limited to the spiritual realm, it had real-world implications. The church, being the most influential institution of the time, had the power to label someone a witch and subject them to a trial. These trials were heavily biased, and the accused were often found guilty based on flimsy evidence or coerced confessions. Thus begins the era of witch trials, fueled by fear and religious fervor. This period in history brought about a wave of paranoia and suspicion, with dire consequences for those unfortunate enough to be caught in its wake. It was a time of darkness and despair, a chilling testament to the power of fear and the lengths to which people would go to eradicate what they did not understand. One of the most infamous witch trials took place in the little town of Pendle, England. Fasten your seatbelts as we journey back to the year 1612, to a time when superstition and fear ran rampant. In the rugged landscapes of Lancashire, Pendle Hill's ominous shadow loomed over the small, isolated community. This is where the infamous Pendle witches lived, their story woven into the fabric of English history. It all began when a local peddler refused to sell pins to Alison Device, a member of the notorious Device family. Alison cursed the peddler, who shortly thereafter suffered a stroke. The local magistrate, Roger Nowell, took interest in the incident and began a massive witch hunt. Alison, her mother Elizabeth, and her brother James were among the first to be accused. In their confessions, they implicated others, including their grandmother, Old Demdike, and the rival Chattox family. What's peculiar is that these confessions were given willingly, without torture, a rarity in witch trials. The trials were nothing short of a spectacle. The accused were paraded in front of a crowd of curious onlookers, their fate in the hands of the king's court. In a chilling turn of events, 9-year-old Janet Device testified against her own family, contributing to their conviction. In the end, 10 people were found guilty. On a gloomy day in August, they were hanged on Gallows Hill, their lives extinguished by the very community they had once been part of. Their crime? Witchcraft, a charge born out of fear, superstition, and a deep-seated paranoia that gripped the era. The Pendle witch trials were a dark chapter in history, a testament to the dangers of mass hysteria and unchecked fear. They were also a stark reminder of the frailty of justice when clouded by fear and prejudice. The Pendle witch trials left an indelible mark on history, a grim reminder of the power of fear and superstition. Across the ocean, in the New World, the Salem witch trials took hysteria to a new level. In the tail end of the 17th century, the sleepy village of Salem, Massachusetts, was seized by a fear so potent it would claim the lives of 20 innocent people. The first tremors of panic began in January of 1692, when 2 young girls experienced inexplicable fits and convulsions. Doctors, baffled by their symptoms, attributed the strange afflictions to the supernatural. The accusations began to fly. The girls named 3 women, including a slave named Tituba, as their tormentors. These women were promptly arrested, and under duress, Tituba confessed to being a witch, unwittingly setting a precedent for what was to follow. The whispers of witchcraft grew into a roar, and the people of Salem were swept up in a wave of mass hysteria. Friends turned on friends, neighbors accused neighbors. No one was safe from the finger of suspicion. As the trials progressed, the accusations became increasingly absurd. Giles Corey, an 80-year-old man, was accused of witchcraft and famously refused to enter a plea. In a horrific act of cruelty, he was pressed to death under heavy stones in an attempt to force a confession out of him. He died maintaining his innocence, his final words a plea for more weight. In the wake of the trials, the village was left in a state of devastation. Families were torn apart, their loved ones lost to the gallows or languishing in jail. By the spring of 1693, the trials finally came to an end, but the scars they left would never fully heal. The Salem witch trials were a chilling display of the power of fear and the dangers of mob mentality. They serve as a stark reminder of what can happen when fear takes hold of a community and reason and justice are cast aside. The Salem witch trials were a dark chapter in American history, a testament to the destructive power of mass hysteria. In the wake of such tragedies, one might wonder, when did the witch hunts finally end? After a long, dark period of paranoia, fear, and torment, the witch trials eventually began to wane. The decline and eventual cessation of these harrowing hunts were due to a myriad of factors. One of the primary catalysts was the rise of Enlightenment thinking. The Enlightenment, a philosophical movement that dominated the world of ideas in Europe during the 17th and 18th centuries, emphasized reason, individualism, and skepticism about religious dogma. It challenged the prevailing notions of the time, including the irrational fear and persecution of supposed witches. As this enlightened thinking spread, it began to erode the foundations of the witch hunts. Many Enlightenment thinkers openly criticized the witch hunts. They argued against the legitimacy of spectral evidence, which was often the only proof used in witch trials. They questioned the very existence of witches and condemned the trials as nothing more than mass hysteria fueled by superstition and fear. The influence of these thinkers, coupled with increasing skepticism among the general public, led to a gradual shift in societal attitudes. Laws were amended, judgments revised, and the witch trials slowly came to an end. However, this did not happen overnight. It was a slow, arduous process that took decades, even centuries, to fully manifest. The last legal execution of a witch in England took place in the late 17th century, while in other parts of Europe, trials and executions continued well into the 18th century. But the end of the witch hunts did not mean the end of the fear and stigma associated with witchcraft. It merely marked a shift from violent persecution to social ostracism. The witch hunts may have ended, but the echoes of their impact can still be heard today. The end of the witch hunts marked a significant shift in societal thinking, but the scars of this dark era remain. The witch trials have left a lasting legacy, one that continues to impact our world today. As we delve into the aftermath of these dark episodes, we see their influence on various aspects of our society, including our legal system, societal attitudes, and even our popular culture. Starting with the legal system, the witch trials were instrumental in highlighting the importance of evidence-based prosecution. The trials were often conducted with scant evidence, relying heavily on hearsay and superstition. This glaring flaw in the justice system led to the establishment of legal principles that prioritize hard evidence and fair trials. It was a turning point, a moment that pushed societies to reevaluate their legal practices. Moving on to societal attitudes, the witch trials have become synonymous with mass hysteria and the dangers of unchecked fear. They serve as a potent reminder of the perils of scapegoating and the consequences of allowing fear to override reason. It's a lesson that resonates to this day, helping to shape our understanding of social dynamics and collective behavior. Lastly, let's not forget the impact on popular culture. From the wicked witches of fairy tales to the charming ones of modern fantasy series, the image of the witch has been deeply ingrained in our collective consciousness. But these depictions aren't just for entertainment. They also serve as allegories, reflecting societal anxieties and challenging our notions of power and otherness. Moreover, the witch trials have inspired countless works of literature, film, and art. Their narratives used to explore themes of persecution, fear, and the abuse of authority. They continue to captivate us. Their stories a blend of fascination and horror that draws us in time and again. In essence, the legacy of the witch trials is multifaceted, influencing our societal structures, shaping our cultural narratives, and serving as a cautionary tale for future generations. The witch trials, a chilling chapter in our history, serve as a stark reminder of the dangers of fear and superstition. As we step back from the murky depths of the witch trials, what lessons can we glean from this unsettling chapter of history? From the dawn of the witch trials, we've seen how fear and misunderstanding can spark a flame of hysteria, capable of consuming entire communities. We've journeyed through the trials of the Pendle witches, a stark example of the power of superstition and the devastating effects of false accusations. We've then ventured across the Atlantic to the infamous Salem witch trials, where social tensions and mass hysteria led to the execution of innocent lives. Here, we've seen the tragic consequences when fear overrides reason, and the rule of law gives way to mob rule. In examining the end of witch hunts, we've seen the gradual shift in societal understanding and the eventual triumph of reason over superstition. This shift didn't come easily or quickly, but resulted from the tireless efforts of rational minds challenging the status quo. It was a slow and painful process, but it led to the extinction of such brutal practices in most parts of the world. Through the legacy of witch trials, we've understood the lasting impact these events have had on our society and culture. They serve as grim reminders of the potential for mass hysteria and the misuse of power. They underscore the importance of due process, fair trials, and the presumption of innocence. But perhaps the most important lesson is the necessity of questioning, critical thinking, and skepticism. These traits serve as our best defense against the spread of fear and superstition. They allow us to challenge unfounded beliefs, and stand against the tide of mass hysteria. In understanding our past, we can better navigate our future, ensuring the mistakes of history are not repeated. So, as we step away from the shadows of the witch trials, let us carry these lessons with us as a lantern to guide our path through the fog of fear and ignorance.